Hey guys, it's Dave. Thanks for stopping by for my 9th year anniversary of sobriety. It's actually yesterday, but it was a very hectic day of playing with the dogs and watering plants and stuff like that. So, I'm celebrating a day late with you. Although my last year's sobriety video really got consistent views all year long, and so many of you reached out with congratulations, personal stories about relatives or friends. I know that some of you had very ill relatives that got help, and there is nothing like opening my computer up in the morning and seeing a story like that. So believe me, share them. Really, truly, it means so much to me. I'll be working from the computer today because I'll never remember all of these questions. I've got a few specialty phalaenopsis that I've been meaning to repot for a while. I won't bother you with them at all. I just might keep my hands busy. Sobriety and plant questions in here. There is one or two that might take me a little bit longer because I think they deserve some serious thought, but I'll keep it pretty light, and some of the questions will be very short. So see how long this video goes. You'll already know. You can see the timestamp, but let's get started. All right, first up, ODAT, one day at a time. Keep it simple, sweetheart. Keep coming back and all that jazz. Congratulations. Thank you so much. And I will not read all of the congratulations because, one, as time goes on in sobriety, that birthday should be a whole lot less about me and a whole lot more about my brothers and sisters out there who are still suffering or perhaps are new to sobriety. I should be here to say, at the very least, it gets so much better, and it sure does get easier. All right, next up is my hubby got sober December 31st, 1999, 25 years sober. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to me. You're much better for it. Wouldn't even have time to talk about how much better off I am for it and how much better off everyone who's ever had to deal with me in life is better off for it too. Oh man. They asked one question, and then I just included a question I get asked all the time. Their question was, why did I start drinking? And I know what you mean by that. And then the kissing cousin is, how did I stop drinking? And I know people mean, why did I start drinking like a raving lunatic? I started drinking just like anybody else. It was available in the house. I was a teenager, and I, from the very beginning, did not have the mechanism to turn off how much alcohol I put into my body. So, no, I did not start out as someone who drank every day, and in fact, it was very rare. But when I did, when I got enough alcohol into my system to feel it, there's no shutoff valve. That is part one of being an alcoholic. Part two is losing the power of choice. And that's what it boils down to. Can I, with my own willpower, say, I am not going to drink over an extended period of time? And then when I do drink, can I say, three's enough? I feel it. That's nice. I'm relaxed. I feel more social. I'm not as shy. I don't feel as irritated about the day. Can I stop there? No. No on both of those counts. And this is a question that I think deserves a little more time, a little more nuance, because I have tried to explain alcoholism to people who are not alcoholic and to describe just what I did to you, that I can't just decide not to drink. I can't just wake up and decide, you know what, it's a nice day, I shouldn't drink, I'll just be hungover tomorrow. I wouldn't be in the predicament I'm in, believe me, if I could do that. And then I become a machine to pour alcohol into once it's in my system. So I've got the obsession to drink. I was always thinking about it, can't shut that off. And then, of course, the inability to stop pouring it into my body. There's no good enough reason for me not to drink. It does not exist because I can't do it with my willpower. And I give people examples of that, like everything being on the line, a marriage being on the line, fill in the blank. That's what it was for me, in part, and still not being able to do it. And people will nod along like they get it. And then they'll tell me the story about their no good, low down cousin who's an alcoholic, and he's got kids and he's losing the kids, or he's not there for the kids, and he could, but he just won't. You're close. You're so close, because he has every reason to quit, but cannot. And that is an alcoholic. And that is going to require some magic. Which takes us to, how did I quit drinking? I don't know. I do not know. Our anniversary, our wedding anniversary, is the day before my sobriety birthday. And the day I woke up 9 years ago, October 1st, I was in a real jam. I was at the end of, I didn't know it was the end of like a 2-week blind drunk bender. And I remember very little of that, but I do remember coming to early that morning and being downstairs at our old place and not knowing how to get alcohol into the house. The liquor store didn't open for hours. How would I get down there in the middle of the day, and how would I get alcohol back into the house after what I had just put my wife through? The grocery store up the street was open, but again, I could get caught where, this, and it just, at that moment, that moment of clarity that, some alcoholics talk about, it just hit me. My life had come to that. That's where it was, and it was never, ever going to get better. And in fact, alcoholism is progressive. It'll never get better. It's always worse. But I glimpsed the perspective that everyone else had on me, that knew me. And it was just shattering. It was really shattering to be in that moment. And as soon as my wife woke up, I said, I can't quit drinking. This is never, ever going to get better, and I've got to get help today. I said it right away because you can't unring that bell. Those words are never, ever coming back. So, and that's what I did. That's what I did. And I met some people that gave me suggestions, and one of them was stupid. And that's what, there was this spiritual solution. And that's crazy. That's crazy that you could rely on something like the spirit of the universe, something far greater than me, to lift that obsession. But I threw a prayer out there. I said, I don't believe this, but I can't quit drinking and I need help. And my obsession to drink was lifted at that moment. It's never returned. Now, I've had follow through. I've taken a lot more suggestions, but that's how it worked for me. And I kept taking suggestions from these and many other people. And man, I am about to cry. Whew. Didn't expect to have that happen on Sober Plank Guy. Well, what a life. What a life. In your experience, how do you get someone you love who's addicted to listen and help? I do not know. I don't know. Some people hear the message when a loved one sits them down and some don't. I had a conversation, and I have permission to share this, with my wife the last time she talked to me. Not the only time, but the last time she was going to. And she sat across the table from me and said, in short, and with so much love and kindness, said, I don't think you should drink alcohol at all, any kind ever. And she understood more about alcoholism than a lot of people I know who are sober. The thing I started this video with. And she said, I can see what happens to you and it's not your fault, but you drink and something changes. I can see it in your face and I can see it in your eyes and you just can't stop. And I said, because alcoholics are sneaky MFers, that was crazy. That was crazy talk, not to drink at all. I certainly knew I couldn't do that. But I said, no, I know that I need to drink less. And this is where she sunk my battleship. She looked at me and said simply, how? I had no I had no answer. There was nothing left for me to say because I knew there was no how. I knew I couldn't do it. And so it's kind of her fault in a way that things spun out of control for about the next, I don't know, 6 months. So she had almost both feet out the door the morning that I said I needed help. And I guess she stuck around to see what would happen. And what happened was I didn't ever drink again. So the only thing I knew, and I assumed she would leave, when I showed up that night was that I never wanted to take another drink ever. And from the beginning, I didn't want to hear about just for today. I wanted a long-term strategy. I wanted to listen to people who had long-term success and how they did that. And how they did that was available to everyone. There's a whole book full of suggestions that you can take. And while, yes, there's only a daily reprieve because this is the day we're alive in, there is a plan to maintain long-term sobriety. And I latched onto those people. The people who act like sobriety is 1 foot on a banana peel and another foot on a banana peel while you're straddling a grave, no thank you. No thank you at all. And to keep it light, this is from Patreon. This is my favorite question. What will happen to your plants when you die? Are they in your will? LOL. I told Kathleen to pick out like 4 or 5 of her favorites and take the rest to the curb and put an ad on Craigslist. She's not on Facebook, and there is nothing worth it to her to get on Facebook. But yeah, I have no sentimentality to the plants that I love so very much after I'm not here to enjoy them. And I would not want Kathleen in any way to feel like she should be burdened with my collection, because while my collection might not be as large as yours, if you have, 6, 8,000, 2,000 plants, it's a lot of plants and it's a lot of work. And if it's not your passion, it would just be, oh, what a bummer to take care of this collection. Oh my God. Yes, my nose is still running from my little cry earlier. This is also from a patron, and that is, what do you dislike about running a YouTube channel on your favorite hobby? Well, point of clarification, my greatest passion, my greatest love, and my favorite hobby is classical music. That's above everything else. I guess you can't really include dogs because that's kind of a living thing, but I spend a lot of time with them too. But it gave me a life in a way that wasn't available to me because I am kind of locked in my head with long COVID. And I did lose some passions like, being able to read for comprehension. I can read short things. I won't remember it, but like many of you have heard me talked about trying to read long form prose for comprehension, and I still can't do it. 3.5 years now later. I do read a classical music journal. I skim it when I'm getting fatigued, and I put it down when I look at a really long essay and I just don't want to read it. I just want to get to the end of it, and I know that's it's past time. Just put it down. So I haven't given up. I'm still trying. But at any rate, that wasn't the question. The other things I really like about it are, well, I guess it's all related. The community that has been built here is incredible. The supplemental income is good. YouTube is really, really fair about splitting, mostly in our favor, the ad revenue. They're not good about their super thanks. So Buy Me a Coffee is always, they're all appreciated when you give me gifts and other creators, but Buy Me a Coffee takes a very small percentage, and YouTube takes about, after taxes, I think it's over 70%. So it's not great. I like making videos. I like talking about plants. Yeah, and to be able to sit here and talk about plants and life and be myself, which is, a little snarky. I can say I think something is stupid, and it's my channel. There's no one holding me back. I don't have an employer saying, dial it back. You need to be more neutral. I guess if I wanted a bigger channel more generic plants, more generic advice, more generic personality, but I would be bored. I don't want to do that. I want to sit here, have this relationship with you, and be me. Sans the cursing, because yeah, in real life I do that. Some of you have met me in real life, and I think you will agree. What you're seeing here on the screen is what is right here. So yeah, it's fun to be able to do that. And I got an audience immediately. 68% of people who start a YouTube channel and start uploading will get 0 views, none. So me being ranked, this channel, at 6,500,000th of all their video people who upload at least once a month, almost puts me in the top 10% of subscribership at 5,500 subscribers. So the odds are way against you of building a viewership, and yet here we are. Dislikes, I don't really have any dislikes. I mean, I wish that I had a desire to make videos that I know are really popular, and maybe they wouldn't be popular if I did it. Like, I'm no Ashley Anita. She can go to Home Depot and get 44,000 views shopping. I doubt many of you would want to tag along with me to Walmart. And, the other side of that is we all need to make thumbnails that you will click on that look interesting, but there's no way in hell I'm putting rare with Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart. It is not going to happen. And most of those plants come from Costa Farms, and Costa Farms is the world's largest houseplant producer, and they plan for years in advance. They ain't rare. Congratulations and very happy sobriety birthday. Have you treated yourself with a gift? Well, I am not one to hold back on treating myself. So this year, I bought myself a very nice bicycle. I've got that new puppy. I think I'm good. Here is from a very regular viewer and commenter. We can talk about anything you want as long as we see some Hoya blooms. You turned me into a Hoya head. Well, you're living in the right state, which is Florida. It's a shame I didn't sober up a week earlier because Rebecca was resplendent with her blooms. Maybe 50, but they all kind of came on at once, and so they all went at once. And so there's just a pile of dead soldiers beneath her right now. Obscura, you've seen a bunch of times. That would be a little more challenging to film. So I'll show a picture of my multiflora, which doesn't rev everyone's engine. I think that plant is so underrated, and it blooms like crazy. And if someone's newer to Hoya, it's sure easy to take care of. Here's me being me. I just see a lot of poorly grown multiflora in the sense that they're just getting way too much light. That plant is so much prettier if you pull it back from the light, get the deep green leaves. You will not affect the flowers at all. It'll continue to pump out flowers, and the foliage is just going to look so much better. I'd love to hear how your plants might fit into your recovery if you feel they do, or conversely, if perhaps you need a Hoya intervention. Not sure we're the most effective crowd for that anyway. No, you're not. You guys are enablers. My first reaction was, well, they don't really fit into my recovery. And what I was thinking of, I know it is very common for people to think that you take an addiction like alcoholism and take on a new addiction, a different, better one. There is a program for alcoholics that we can follow if we want to. If you're one of the few who thinks you're in enough pain to give it a whirl, where we don't have to have that incessant need to try to fill this void, through buying stuff, or there are a million ways to try to fill that void. I call it a spiritual void, but that may not be what everybody calls it, which that's fine. So I don't need the Hoya intervention. And in fact, I did a bad job of buying plants this year. I should have, thinking moving forward into next year, filming and potentially selling plants, should have bought way more. I just didn't. I just didn't feel it this year. And in terms of my personal collection, I'm really happy with how it is right now. So, yeah, enough of that. But, one suggestion that was given to me early on, and I took it the very first day that night, was prayer and meditation. Again, alcoholics are super sneaky. So we get to decide what God is, which I just call the spirit of the universe, and what prayer is. For some people, that's just putting a positive thought out in the world, just quietly to themselves. I have a little mantra I say, and then try to follow through on it, like be useful and effective to someone else, help other people. I only think of myself maybe 95% of the day. I say 5% to think about somebody else. And we get to decide what meditation is. For some, I know that's fishing, or it could be leaf raking, or it could be watering plants. It's something I do every single day. I get quiet before the puppy, I get quiet with some tea, some classical music, and then I water some plants or just tend to them in some way. Quiet, meditative, and before long COVID, I would be ready for the day every day. I showed up to work in this mood every single day, and that is not something that happened when I drank. I could show up one day and just be like, hey, guy, woo, everything's great. And the next day, everybody sucks. Everybody in the world sucks, except me. Carve out that exception. We alcoholics are, by and large, very selfish people. Don't really consider how our behavior affects other people. In fact, on that note, no, this isn't a question, but it's a transformation in sobriety. I took a moral inventory of myself. And had you asked me when I was drinking and when I first got sober about myself, I would have been, I'm someone who moved out of the house when I was 16. I'm a self-starter. I've done it all myself. Everything was against me, rah, rah, rah. And then I looked at this moral inventory and looked at all of the people throughout my life who had done nothing but try to help me along the way. Now, there was nothing anybody could do to help me with my real problem, but it was astonishing to see that number, those people, and then how I had treated them. And it wasn't great. It was not great at all, but there's a system for that. So yeah, to take alcoholism and focus it on not just how it affected me, because that's the main thing we want to do when we sober up is I lost job opportunities, I lost my wife, I lost the house, whatever it is. It might just be your self-esteem and your ego, but to say that, wow, I affected a lot of people. It was not easy to love me, and I pushed almost everybody out. I was down to the last person on earth who still loved me. I do sometimes hear people say I'm a grateful alcoholic and, I wouldn't have that any other way. I would not have put so many people through the trials and tribulations and the unhappiness and et cetera and so on that I did. If alcoholism just affected me, fine, I wouldn't change anything. I am where I am and I'm very, very fortunate to be here. But yeah, a lot of people got hurt along the way. So I would spare all of them that. Oh boy. Hi Dave, have you ever tried growing in Pon or Leca? I had an amazing experience with Hoya macrophylla. It was not thriving, about to die, so I took it out of the mix. I had it in and put it in Leca. It took off. Cool. And is now growing beautifully with new leaves constantly. Mine's dead. I'm a little jelly. Thanks for bringing it up. All I have to do is fill the reservoir a little each week. It has been a fun experiment. And then another comment from a regular contributor was, do you have something against self-watering pots? Well, I do. I don't like how they look. So there's that. I like how basalt and granite marble look in terracotta. So that's what I like. Apparently I'm not going to repot these Phalaenopsis because we're almost done here. If you haven't seen me talk about how cold it gets down here, we turn the heat way down on the main floor. Well, we only have one thermostat. heat rises, obviously. So it stays warmer upstairs, and we have infrared heat up there too. So we're toasty and warm, and we buy the good sheets and the good comforters and things like that. But it's quite chilly down here. And then if in January or February when it hits, minus 5, 10, 20, our furnace can't keep up with this big old house, and it gets very cold in here. So having a water reservoir, one winter I tried to do this is a long time ago because I don't really typically do water props anymore, but I did water prop, killed them all, everything, because those roots were sitting in just water and they just basically froze to death. So that's why I don't use it. I'm glad other people have great experience with it. It also looks expensive to me, and my mix is the 3 of the cheapest ingredients on the planet, and I'm happy with it. I've been growing that for quite a while, narrowed it down to a very simple mix, and it does well for me. So I'm not like looking for ways to improve my growing at this time. Given Hoya's shallow root systems, how should we pot them in most pots out there which seem to be too deep? Many Hoya met their demise once upon a time in my collection. I will tell you how I combat that is, yes, it's sometimes thrift shopping. I have found some really cool, old, I have no idea where you would buy them now, and if you do know, let me know, but kind of wider pots that are shallow. And yes, there are some of those kind of half pots at Lowe's where they're very wide, but I'm talking about small pots. I'm sure there's a word for it, like some type of plant goes in that, like you have your geranium pot and et cetera and so forth. But what I do is make sure that I've got a bunch of chunks at the bottom of it when I know I'm going to have a very shallow root system and it needs to be potted up into, like one of these, and everything is just kind of on top for now. It won't stay that way forever. I stopped losing plants once I started doing that. When I forget, and I do sometimes still forget, and I have like cocoa coir packed down in there that's going to, 1, stay wet for a long time, 2, pack really tight, then I'm in trouble. And usually what happens is the root system gets into that packed cocoa coir and won't grow any further, and the plant begins to suffer. And that is specifically put out there for all you Hoya love to be root bound people, because not in my experience. Final question. How long have you and the lovely Kathleen been married? Oh, and I'd like to see a video on how you make substrate. This person's asked for a video on that quite a few times. And, I always think on videos that cover something that's too simple or obvious to me that it won't be popular. And of course, I can't think of one that I've done right off the top of my head. They end up being super popular, to which Kathleen has said, I don't think you're good at judging what's going to be popular, which is absolutely true. So I will make that video. It'll be short, I guess, but I'll be happy to make it. And how long have we been married? So I sobered up the day after our 7th wedding anniversary, and we just celebrated our 16th anniversary. So I have been sober longer than half of our marriage, and we only dated and got married within, I think that all happened within a year or so, right around there. It was relatively quick that I took her hostage, essentially, because she did not know what she was going to be marrying into. And I'm very, very lucky that I'm still married. Many people sober up and marriages don't make it. And that's a bit of a spoiler alert. I told Kathleen that a long time ago, and she said, do you want to know why? Here, my wife. Sure. And she said, because by the time you guys decide to sober up, we're sick of your shit. Fair enough. Also, for those, who may be new into sobriety or may someday join sobriety, it's imperative to remember that it doesn't just affect you. There is someone else that this is affecting. And in 9 years, I have never once missed an event or blown off something that's important to her because I needed to be with my sobriety people. It has never happened. That was just profoundly important to me from the beginning, to remember that we are a partnership. And, you know, being drunk is not easy on another person, but neither is being newly sober. And in a lot of ways, that's worse. You know, one, no one knows if it's going to take, you know. And I think she saw early on how serious I was, because I was not, that was the only thing I was dead serious about. And so that probably helped. But, you know, there are questions, you know, is it for real? Will it last? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm a lucky man because I got married to an incredible woman, and then we got to fall back in love with each other all over again. How many people get to do that? All right, guys, I will see you in the next one real soon.